Hey guys, and welcome to our second video of the week. And this one should be hopefully notably shorter than our last video. And in this one, I just want to go over uh, outputting our data in specific formats. So renaming our columns, concatenating data, um, managing our data a little bit, so creating calculated columns and things like that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go over what is known as what's the word I'm looking for here? The first thing I want to go over is what's known as a column alias. And so if you remember from our last video where we were pulling back customer ID, let's say, customer ID. So let's say that I want customer ID to be called something else, right? So customer ID is great, but let's say that when I think of ID, I think of numbers, right? And this is obviously giving me back strings. So let's say I want to rename this column in my output to be customer name. So what this is known as is this is called column aliasing. And as you know, like if we do a select all, the default name for our columns is going to be what it is in the database. But let's say I want to change that. And so what I can do is I can say, give me customer ID as customer code. And so I run it, and now I get output as customer code. So pretty simple. Generally speaking, we're not going to change the name of a column that is a default in the database. And the reason that is, right, we don't really care that much about it, right? It's what it is in the database. We don't really care. But when we start getting into when we start formatting our output, now we are going to start caring about specially named columns. We can even create new columns with our select statements that we're going to want to give names to. And so that's where the column alias really comes into play. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and just rewrite this again and do select star from orders. So now I have all of these columns, right? So really what I want to do now is I want to format this data a little bit. So let's say that I want to start combining some columns to make the data easier to read for me, right? Or let's say that I want to make it more human readable, right? So let's start concatenating some of our string data, right? So let's start with address, or yeah, let's start with our shipping data, right? So let's say select ship name plus, and this is how we concatenate with the plus operator, right? So ship name plus ship address from orders. Assuming it will let me do this. Okay. So now, as you can see, I've got back my ship name, my ship address, and let's also do a ship region. Okay, so now you guys can see I pulled back in one column ship name, ship address, and ship region. So let's say that this is a little hard to read. So, well, that's not going to work. Let's say this is a little hard to read. So what I can do is I can start, I could format this even better, and I can say address forgot to concatenate. So address, what did I screw up here? Select okay. Here we go. Okay. So now I've pulled back. So now I've created a new column called address, and I have specified address. So I feel like I spelled wrong. Address? No, that's right. So now I've created a new column with that is concatenating address colon with ship name. And then I can concatenate that again. Excuse me. With the actual ship address. And output my data a little bit better, right? And so that is both concatenation and then concatenation with literal values, right? So what I can do is, like in this one, I can add a comma to make it a little easier. One thing to note about our output is, or one thing to note about using these string literal values is we do have to escape apostrophes. Which should be pretty easy. And so basically the way we escape an apostrophe is instead of putting one apostrophe, we put two, right? And so as you can see here, let's do, let's make this a little better. Let's see, select star from orders. Actually, let's do select star from employees. And we'll say first name plus oh, I forgot to add the concatenation operator. So as you can see, I have now pulled back all of my employees, and I have formatted the data to say first name, last name, address is address, and I can say that, and I can also use that column alias to give this column a name. So I could say so now employee address is this, right? So pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. This really gets into this is really useful if we want to start outputting this data to CSV for a program to print, or maybe we just want to output this data even if we're pulling this data back directly from a program and we want to handle the data a little better. This is where this gets really useful. Or as I said, it's super easy to see this in a human readable manner. So now let's talk about arithmetic operators, right? So arithmetic operators being, division, multiplication, modulo or remainder, addition, and subtraction. So we've all taken basic, fourth grade math. So, whoops, forgot to add the comment to it. So this is where we can do things like calculated columns. So combining ship weight, combining like order total cost, or combining individual item cost, or combining, let's take for example a credit card statement, a history of credit card statements. So we can say, okay, so I have a list of credit card payments and the total amount of credit that was owed, so I can combine my entire payment total to see what my final balance is. So let's see if we can do this with orders. Or yeah, let's see if we can do this with orders. Select star from orders, if I can type. So let's see, ship via. So let's say we want to find out how much freight customer VINet has shipped, right? So what we can do is we can do, well, that's a bad example. Let's try order details. Oh, SQL Server, you continue to irritate me. Select star from. Let's see. What is a good example here? Okay, here's a good example. So let's find out what the total, okay, so order ID 10,248 had several orders in their basket. Let's see how many, let's see how much order ID actually, let's see, actually we can combine this back to orders, right? So I can do this. So let's do select well, no, I can't do that without doing a join, and I don't want to do joins yet. So yeah, so let's say select unit price times quantity as total product cost, where order ID, say from order details, where order ID is equal to 2048, 10, 20, 48, and product ID is equal to oh, I know what I did wrong. So now I can see the So now I can see the total product cost for order 2048. Now I can see how much order 10 2048 spent on product ID 11. And I can make this a little prettier, right? So I could say order ID product ID, and now I could see that let's add a quantity in there too for simplicity. So now I could see that and in fact I can even get rid of this product ID. So now I can see design. What's another column here? So let's do product ID, unit price. So now I can see what my total product cost was, right? So I can see, okay, order ID, I can see the breakdown of the products by the order ID, right? So order ID had 3 products. Product 11 was $14. There were 12 of them, so they spent $168 on product 11, $98 on product 42, and $174 on product number and product 72. So I can use my other operators in the same way, right? So I could say, let's say I know the total cost, but I don't know the unit price, right? So I know the quantity and the total cost, and I could say, let's ignore the unit price here. Let's say total product cost divided by quantity as unit cost as also unit cost. Okay, so let's do this. So this will work better. So unit price times quantity. So I can use parentheses to denote separate expressions, right? So I can say unit price times quantity divided by quantity, which gives us also unit cost. Unit price. So that's just another way to use our arithmetic operators. And where this would get really helpful would be when we're doing joins. We could calculate some of these columns by doing joins, which I'm going to get into next week. So that is formatting our output. Now what I can also do is I can use what is known as the sum operator to get the so what I can do is I can use the sum operator to get the total order cost, right? And so, well, it's technically the sum function, so I can say select order ID sum price times, if I can type today, quantity as So order cost from order details. Let's see, distinct. Let's try this. Okay, so apparently I can't do it like this. I should be able to. Let's try this. Let's try. Okay, but anyway, I can use sum to get like the total unit price, right? So for each row, I can see what the total unit price is, or I could see another good example is let's circle back to the example that I did or that I started to do a minute ago. So let's do select star from orders. I could say, so now I could say, how much freight have we shipped over, how much freight did we ship in the year 1996? So I could say select sum freight from orders, and this is just a little thing I wanted to circle back to. We'll go into functions later in the semester. So select freight from orders where order date between 1996-01-01 and 1996 or 1997-01-01. So now I've been able to find out how much freight we shipped in the entire year of 1996. So that's sum, that's outputting our data, that's column aliases. Like I said, please reach out if you guys have any other questions, and that will cover it for this week.